I guess I'm assuming that there are some men that are listening to me. I know I only have very few subscribers on YouTube, and but I am getting a lot of views on my shorts, and so I'm guessing that there are some men that are listening to me, and potentially some men that are in a process of breaking up with somebody, or divorcing, or healing, or whatever you want to call it. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to me, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's my only real push on my socials, is to just get you to subscribe on my YouTube page. I'd really like to grow my YouTube long form content. This is what I like to do. This is what I think is something that I have to offer. I do shorts because apparently you have to like have these little ideas that are compressed so somebody can scroll and get an idea real quickly. And I mean, that's fine, but like, really don't understand what somebody's trying to say unless you kind of, I don't know, sink in a little bit. I've had some different experiences in this life that a lot of people haven't had. I just, as an example, I did a Sundance 7 years straight, where I was what they call a lead dancer, which means I was basically dancing. It's not really dancing. It's like a ritual meditation, moving meditation for 5 days from sun up to sundown for 7 years. And it's not something that not a lot of people do. And I've gained some insight. I've trained in some wisdom traditions. I'm a trained sweat lodge. They call them pourers in a certain tradition. So I have some background in, I guess you could call it, the healing arts. And I've learned a few things over the years that I want to share with people, and certain things I can't really share because they're sort of private and stuff like that. But some things I can. And what I want to talk to men mostly about today is, first of all, I want to say that if you're a man and you've ever gotten the message that you're not emotional, or you're not emotionally intelligent, well, fuck that. Because I've found that most men are equally emotionally intelligent as women are. Are they as emotional? No. And I've said this before in some of the groups that I've been in, men's groups, and I've said it to other men, that I really have a lot of empathy for women, because their bodies are structured to emote, to feel more than we are. I don't know if it's their bodies or their energy systems or their emotional bodies or their messaging, but I know that they're bathed in estrogen for a long period of time when they're babies, for years. And that's a powerful chemical, and it does something to your physical makeup that allows you to, or I don't know if it allows you, but it lends itself, the female structure lends itself to emotions. If anybody, by the way, if there are any women listening to this, or men, in fact, men and women both, in my opinion, there's a woman named Allison Armstrong. And if you really want to know what I think about women and men, and the way they communicate, the way they should communicate, how they should potentially understand each other, she would definitely be the authority as to how I think about that. There are some men in the field too the guy who wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy is a real good one. There's a few others that I wouldn't mention here that helped me get through some of my hardest times in my divorce. But I don't know, I call them kind of gruff and very, very pro man, and I needed that. But I'm not going to mention their names right now. But those two, Allison Armstrong, and just look up the book No More Mr. Nice Guy. I'm forgetting his name right now. But those two good introductions into how I kind of think. There's another one called David Data, who wrote The Way of the Superior Man, which is a really good one. Kind of don't quite understand his whole angle, but he kind of speaks in spiritual and a little bit poetic terms, whereas Allison and No More Mr. Nice Guy speak very, almost like you're listening to a grade school teacher, not like dumbed down, but like you can understand what they're saying easily, whereas David Data is more metaphorical, which is cool. I like it when people speak in metaphors. It lets you expand your, the world is poetry, the world is art, and if somebody is telling you something, like me, for example, when I say things, I try to speak clearly and I try to tell you this is my experience, but are there just tons of nuances and tons of different ways of looking at things and ways for women and men to get along and have relationships? Of course there are. There's anomalies, there's just different levels of maturity for people. And I think I've said this before. When I'm speaking about relationships and what I want and what I think is good, it obviously takes two emotionally mature people to follow what I'm suggesting in the relationship realm. I mean, there's nothing you can do for an emotionally immature person except let them mature. You're not going to change them. You can have boundaries and you can keep your side of the street clean, but inevitably if one person is more emotionally mature than the other by a great deal, that's going to be a hard relationship to keep. And by the way, I'll just say that in my divorce, I was told that I was emotionally immature. I was way, way behind my ex-wife's level of maturity.
Welcome to Minnesota.
Level of emotional ability to express. The messaging that I was getting from her was, I'm just beyond you. I've outgrown you. I'm just more mature than you emotionally. And I'm not going to say whether that was true or false. All I know is that I've been on my own journey since then, and I've found that, do I have holes in my emotional maturity? Yes. But for the most part, I'm fairly emotionally mature. And how do I know that? Well, because I can regulate myself. I don't leak my emotional trauma or emotional sense of being onto other people. I shouldn't say I don't. I think I do it sometimes. At the same time, I also do everything I can to take accountability for my emotional state. Just as an example, the other day I was working on something with my oldest daughter, and it was a banking thing, and I was on my phone and it was giving me issues and telling me I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that. So I was I was very focused on trying to accomplish this task for myself and for my daughter. And my 9-year-old daughter was bouncing around on the couch and like moving me, and I couldn't move my phone, and I kind of, I don't know if I snapped, but I very, I don't know what the word, not aggressively, but I very much looked at her and I said, listen, I'm doing something, I'm feeling some stress right now, and I need you not to jump around on the couch so that I can focus on this. And just know that I'm a little bit irritated and aggravated right now. So it would be really helpful if you just minded that. Now, I'm speaking to a 9-year-old, but that's the way I would speak to anyone. I would say, this is my emotional state. It would be very helpful if you could not bother me. It's not your fault. I don't know if I said it's not your fault, but it doesn't matter. I was taking accountability for my emotional state, and I was asking for some respect from her. Now, that is not to say that my relationship with my ex-wife was, not saying it's all her fault, not saying it's all my fault. I'm not saying it's anyone's fault. I'm not saying that I didn't, that there wasn't dysfunction, that there wasn't some toxicity. Mistakes were made on both sides. But the idea that I'm less emotionally mature hasn't come to, I've let that idea go, and I've come into some more emotional maturity through the process of quote unquote healing. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today, is what are the steps for healing? You know, a lot of men are in a position now, especially at my age, I'm somewhere between 35 and 60 years old, where their wife is coming to them and they're saying, I want a divorce and it's over. And men are a lot of times blindsided by it, as I was. They see their life path. They were seeing their life path with their partner, with their family, all the way to the end. And suddenly they have to shift from, I thought we were going to be together forever and have a family and we're going to work through all of our stuff together, to I'm on my own, she doesn't love me anymore, and I have to let all that go. And it's very, very difficult for men to accept that. It was very, very difficult for me to accept that. And talk about this idea of, or this feeling of being on fire. And I think a lot of men, potentially women, can relate to this when you get, and I don't know if it's heartbreak or if it's just simply like a dramatic shock to your worldview, to your vision of your life that you had, and now you have to change it. I don't exactly know what that pain is, but for me it felt like my heart was on fire and my whole body was in pain. It was, the emotional pain was probably worse than any physical pain that I've ever experienced. And unless you're numbing it with substances, or substances mostly, there's no way out of it, and there's no real formula for getting out of it, like a timeline, because everybody's pain is different. Like for me, it took me about 2.5 years to move through all of the pain that and I'm not done with it. I mean, I still tend to want to go back to that pain. I had an experience one time. It was actually in a sauna when I was living with my mom. She had a sauna in the pool room, and I would go down there almost every day and have a sauna. And I had this experience. I won't go into detail exactly how I got the message, but kind of, I guess you could say I was praying, I was meditating, I was opening my channel to the universe because I was in a lot of pain. I was on the downside of the pain, but I was still in it. And I asked for some guidance, and the message I got was, you are through the fire, but the coals in the fire pit are still warm. And that's the way I felt at the time. And, like when you wake up, when you're camping and you had a big fire that night and you just let it burn, you can easily throw a few more pieces of wood on those coals and start your fire again real quick. And that's what this message was saying was, look, you can always put more fire or more wood on the fire, but your goal is now to just let those embers cool down. And there's nothing you can do about it except just not put more wood on the fire. And I found myself wanting to put more wood on the fire from time to time. And I found myself wanting to go back to that pain. It was like a comforting thing. It was like things only made sense if I was in pain. Like I needed to feel that pain because it kind of gave me an excuse to revel. Is that the right word? To just be in that pain. Kind of gave me an excuse. If I wanted to, it could be an excuse not to do productive things with my life, or just simply not be happy, or not be content, not be full of peace. And I think if you really go deep into your sense of being, you might find that your comfort zone, your default state of being, is in a state of anxiety, depression, anger, sadness. And I found that to be very true for me. I guess you could call me a melancholic person. The songs that I listen to have a melancholic vibe. I like when somebody is expressing pain and sadness. I resonate with that, or darkness. You're not going to see me turning on Don't Worry, Get Happy or Happy by Pharrell Williams very often. Sometimes, but if I want to really just listen to some beautiful music, it's going to be melancholic. It's going to be Joni Mitchell. It's going to be Bon Iver. It's going to be Soundgarden, or just something that has that grit, in it, and that's fine. That's the way I kind of walk through this world, but I also have to be very careful of it to not find that comfort there always. And lately, I've been trying to reprogram my mind, talk to my subconscious, and basically tell it not to send me those messages anymore. That I'm ready to be at peace. So that's kind of in a nutshell the pathway for you guys that are dealing with that. I mean, first it's going to be the shock, the pain. If you're anything like me, you're going to do everything you can to try to save your relationship. You're going to try to change. You're going to try to take accountability for all the things that you've ever done. You're going to live in pain for a while. And you're going to think that there's something that you can do. And 9 times out of 10, there's nothing you can do after somebody, especially a woman, tells you that it's over. And that took me a long time to figure out. Finally, I had this thing that I used to do called, in my mind, I was saying giant sucking sound, which it was a way to remember to create a vacuum in my relationship. Like I wouldn't reach out to her. I wouldn't give her any emotional hooks to hook onto. I just started to live my own life, And that was very, very difficult. And I postponed that part of my path for as long as I could. But once I started on that path, I really stuck to it. And again, it was really difficult, but it was the most pivotal time in my healing, was to pull energetically and emotionally away from my ex-wife and start to, there's an energetic loop that happens when you're in a relationship. So you're feeding off the other, and the other is feeding off of you. And when you're in a healthy relationship, I believe, I don't know if I've ever really actually been in a healthy relationship, but from what I understand about healthy relationships and what I can kind of sense, is that loop is continually supportive. You know, you're supporting your partner, they're supporting you, and it's raising you guys, you're raising the couple up together at the same time. My loop, our loop, was pulling each other down. And once I pulled my energy out of that loop and started to basically loop it inside of myself, I had to basically reform all of those pathways within me. I had to loop it back into myself. And there's a lot of spiritual terms for that. Kundalini, Tantra. You're energetically looping energy in your body, and it's not going out into the other person. It's not feeding back through them, through their system. So that's sort of part two. After you get over the shock a little bit and you do everything you can to heal that loop between the two of us, maybe some of you just will decide immediately to retreat, which is probably the best thing you could do, is just to immediately pull your energy back to yourself. Because that, a lot of times, when someone's done with you, that any energy that you send their way is wasted energy. It's not going into the right places. More than likely, if a woman ends the relationship, energetically they've pulled out long ago, and that's partly your fault for not noticing that sooner. So then once you start running the energy within yourself, you realize that another thing that happens is that you're getting no messaging from your partner anymore. So all of the messaging is coming from yourself, from your subconscious to your conscious, or from your conscious to your conscious. And I think a lot of you will find that a lot of that subconscious messaging is negative. I'm a terrible husband, I'm a terrible person, I'm emotionally immature, I don't know what I'm doing, it's all my fault, I don't deserve to be happy, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of happiness because of all this devastation that I've been a part of. And then you need to, once you start to notice that, and the first step is to simply just observe that messaging and to be interested in it and say, wow, I didn't realize that I was basically programming myself to think of myself as a piece of garbage, and I think a lot of us do that, whether it's coming out of a relationship or not. We do a lot of negative self-talk to ourselves. So I started to watch that for a long time, and then I started to actually change it. I started to say things like, I am healing, I am moving towards wholeness, I have the potential to be happy, I do not wallow in this pain, I will feel all of the pain that is necessary for me to feel, and no more. I started to just, when I heard those negative comments, I would try to restructure them. And that took another year or so, and I'm still doing that. I'm on a little bit different level now. But once I started to re-message myself, my emotional state started to improve. My physical state started to improve. By the way, for like probably 2 years, I was I couldn't sleep very much at night, and I was stressed and overtired, and physically, I was working out and stuff, and I had a pretty good diet, but the sleep was something it took me a while to recover that. And I don't know if there's anything you can do about it other than to just know that when you're in that kind of emotional stress, that if your sleep is being impacted, that it's compounding the stress. And I wouldn't just say try to sleep more, because you can also get into a depressive state, but to just know that you're fatigued, and it is fatiguing to go through this, and to take care of yourself. It's really important. I don't think, when I look back on my healing process, I probably should have taken more time just to relax. Kind of kept grinding and kept moving, and I have a lot to show for all the things that I did during that time, but I don't know. I did what I did, and I got through it. Maybe I could have done some things differently, but and then when you start to reprogram your mind, and one of the big ones is that I would really look at is I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And I know it seems cliche, but if you really drill down on the messaging that's coming, I think most of you will find that there's something like that in your messaging, and it's what I would call a root message, and it comes from our societal messaging. It comes from the way we perceive our parents speaking to us, even though I think most parents don't mean to pass that message on. It's just the way children translate criticism, or anything but unconditional love can be translated as, oh, I'm not good enough. And we hold that in our bodies through our whole life. And I don't honestly know if there's any true way to completely purge that message from you, because I think it's something that all humans just deal with their whole life. Most humans do. To take your space in this world with no apologies is next to impossible for most people, including me. So then you get to the place where the coals are still warm, they're still burning, but they're in a state of some control. You have some control. You can still feel the pain. It's not as intense. And then every time you want to go wallow in that pain, you put another piece of wood on those coals and you let it burn for a while. And there's nothing wrong with doing that sometimes. Sometimes, you have to feel, you have to go deeper into the pain to process it. And, processing, there's nothing magic about it. There's nothing sophisticated about it. It's just simply feeling the emotion and watching the messaging that's coming from that. And then later, the coals will become harder to ignite. You'll have to throw some kindling on and some dry grass to get the fire burning again. And I'm coming again from a sober perspective, so I didn't have any of those crutches to numb myself. I didn't use any of those crutches to numb myself. So, if any of you guys are struggling with that, it's going to prolong your healing process if you choose to partake in those numbing agents. It's just the truth. I have a lot of empathy and compassion for people that have addictions, and I'm not judging you. I'm just trying to tell you that those things don't heal you. They just prolong the pain. They can give you some relief once in a while, and maybe you need that. Maybe you need relief once in a while. But just remember that the pain doesn't go away when you relieve yourself temporarily. It will be there for you tomorrow to feel, and potentially even at a more intense level. And then you get to where I am now, which is I can always go back and wallow in that pain if I want to, and it's easy for me to slip into that. It's like gravity, it's like, and I have to be conscious of when I feel like I want to slip into that, and I think probably I'm at a state where most emotionally regulated people are, where most of their life is maybe below neutral, not completely peaceful and content, just kind of trying to rise up to that level on a moment-to-moment basis. But I'm not slipping down into the wallows of pain anymore. And that is a good place to be. If you're there, then you're almost through it. And I don't know if there's another level beyond that, besides fully being enlightened and not being attached to any emotional upset or anything. You're not triggered by anything. You're just completely at peace at all times. You're not attached to outcomes. And I think that's where we all want to be, but it's basically your life's purpose. Your true life's purpose is to find that ultimate peace. A lot of older people find that, when they're on their way down to die, maybe like 6 months before people die. A lot of times they find that peace, and they become really accepting of all of the way this realm is. And maybe some of us can find it sooner. But key piece is observing, feeling, and then reprogramming. And I think some people find hypnosis pretty powerful. I didn't do that. I just used some just conscious reprogramming. Like, I'll close on this. Last thing I'll talk about is just kind of where I am right now. I'm in a place where I don't see my kids as much as I'd like to, heading that way. It's been a long process, and it has to do with the way the divorce shook out, and the terms and the leverage and all of the different things that happen during a divorce when you have kids, and money and all that stuff. And but I'm still not at a place where I feel like it's fair or equal, but heading towards that. So I spend a lot of time by myself in my house that's completely set up for kids to be there, and I have this tendency to want to be lonely about it, and I'm reprogramming my mind to not go there, to remember and appreciate all of the things that I do get to do when I'm not with my kids, and to appreciate the solitude and to appreciate the time that it's given me to heal and to remember who I am. And I would say, kind of glossed over this just now, but appreciation is really the vibration that at some point you need to infuse into your life. And there are many different practices about how to do that. You can write down 10 things you appreciate every day. You can simply go over the things that you appreciate at night and call the people that you appreciate and tell them how much you appreciate them. There's all kinds of different things you can do to bring that vibration of appreciation into your realm, into your emotional, energetic, spiritual body, physical body. And so I've been doing that, and when I wake up in the morning, I'm thankful that most days I remember to shift my perspective, because a lot of times, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, waking up is almost like, oh really? Another one of these days again? Like another life, a lesson, or another grueling day in my emotional battle? And we just kind of, as soon as we wake up, it kind of just goes down from there. And I've been saying things like, I am content, I am grateful for this day, I'm experiencing abundance, I have everything I need. And I say those to myself, and luckily in my room right now, when I wake up, it's around 7:30 or so, the sun is shining right through my window. So I get this sunlight, and I can start to talk to myself in a way that programs myself to remember that the day is full of opportunity, and I'm okay, and I have a choice about the way I experience my day. And I'm choosing to experience it with peace and experience it with emotional regulation. And I don't know if I would say positivity, because I'm not a huge proponent of positive thinking. I'm more a proponent of neutral thinking, at the very least. You could say, well, I'm experiencing abundance as a positive thinking, but I feel like abundance is actually just what the universe truly wants for us. We've been programmed to think that everything is a struggle and everything's a grind, and I don't think that's the natural state of this realm. I think the natural state is simply abundance and energetic flow. And so that's where I am now, and it's working for me, and I hope you guys can get there. The folks, especially the men that are in pain right now. And pain doesn't have to be a breakup. It could be anything. It could be the loss of somebody. It could be just your addictions. It could be just the choices that you're making in this world. You could, if you really look into it, you might realize that, it's just simply the life choices, your diet, your activity, the friends that you're around, the things that you consume on social media. All of those things are factors into how you're programming yourself to feel. And we can go into social media and stuff, which is crazy if you really think about how much time we all spend on that. And again, I'm contributing to that to a certain degree with my shorts and stuff, but that's why I really want people to come to this platform and maybe put my voice on while you're driving or while you're mowing the lawn, and just listen to somebody talk about their life process and how to get to a place where you're in command of your life, and that's really the goal, is to be. Accountability is one thing, but command is another thing. A lot of people walk around in this life thinking that they're a victim, and they have no choice but to suffer. And of course, we all are born under different circumstances and different traumatic events, and we all come from a different place to get to our goal, which is peace and contentment. But it doesn't take away the fact that we all struggle with that on different levels, and we're all much more the same than we are different, in that we're all told in one way or another that we're not worthy at some point, and we have to battle that. We have to get to a place where we're commanding those thoughts, and we're commanding our lives, and we're commanding our emotional state. And it takes a lot of processing, it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of courage to feel what needs to be felt. But once you feel that, and you learn what that emotion is teaching you, then you can get to a place of command. And that's where I am right now. I'm commanding my life, and hopefully you guys can get there too. And it's not to say that I'm not going to experience some things that are going to set me back. I'm sure they will, but I'm on a good foundation now, more strong than I ever have been, to be able to withstand and move through those setbacks with clarity and with detachment and strength and courage. And with all that said, I am grateful, and I am profoundly grateful for the opportunity to go through this emotional pain, because I'm stronger for it. And even though, sometimes it's hard for me to say nice things about my ex-wife because of all that's happened, but for that, I am grateful that she and I gave me the opportunity to become stronger and to become more of who I am. So with that, rock on.